Story 1. Years ago, on a dark, eerie night, I found myself making a late night stop at a local Walmart. The store was situated in a quiet area, with only a few souls venturing out at nearly 1 a.m. Being a woman in my early 22nd, I felt a sense of safety, as I had never encountered any truly criminal elements in that neighborhood before. As I stepped through the entrance, my gaze met the eyes of a teenage girl sitting on a bench near the restrooms. She clutched a backpack and a small purse, her desperate expression etched on her face. Something about her demeanor hinted at an impending panic. After a fleeting moment of staring at me, she returned to her phone, making frantic calls. Seated at the other end of the bench was a white-haired man in casual attire, jeans and a t-shirt. At first glance, he seemed ordinary, but what caught my attention was the fact that his gaze was fixed unwaveringly on the teenage girl beside him. It wasn't a casual glance, it was as if he was sizing her up for some sinister purpose. The girl perched on the edge of the bench, angling herself away from his gaze, as though she wanted to distance herself from him. Her body language screamed her discomfort and her desire to have nothing to do with him. An unsettling feeling washed over me as I went about gathering the items I needed. Usually, I was the type of person who aimlessly wandered through stores, exploring each aisle just for the sake of it. But that night, an urgency urged me to finish my errand as quickly as possible, all the while keeping a watchful eye on the man on the front bench. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I retrieved my knife from my purse and placed it in the front pocket of my jeans for easy access. Such was the level of my discomfort merely being in the same building as that man. As I approached the checkout counter to purchase my items, I couldn't help but observe the interaction between the man and the young woman. He had moved closer to her, attempting to engage her in conversation. However, she responded with hesitant headshakes and brief, monosyllabic replies. Her demeanor resembled that of a terrified rabbit, ready to flee at any moment. On my way past them, with my purchases in hand, she stopped me and inquired if I was headed in the direction of my old hometown. It turned out that she had been on a trip with her friends, and they had made a pit stop at Walmart for drinks and restroom breaks. Unfortunately, they left her behind in the store, unintentionally abandoning her. My old hometown was approximately a 30-minute drive away from the store. I knew that, to get home, she would have to walk for several hours along unlit stretches of rural highway. While I would typically decline such a request, a voice in the back of my mind advised against leaving her alone with the man. Against my usual judgment, I agreed to take her home, refusing her offers of gas money and a cigarette. My reasoning told me that I could handle any potential threat, considering the girl weighed no more than 100 pounds and stood a full head shorter than me. During the drive, the girl revealed that she had recently moved to the area with her mother and younger sisters, having relocated from a larger city several hours south. She had joined her old friends for a weekend getaway, and her mother hadn't expected her back until the following day. Consequently, she had silenced her phone for the night and missed the girl's calls. As we approached her destination, she expressed her gratitude repeatedly, extending her thanks through a firm handshake. She asked if there was anything she could do to repay me, to which I responded, "Just do me a favor and find yourself better friends." Looking back, I couldn't quite pinpoint what about that man had sent shivers down my spine. Nevertheless, his intense stare and the way he fixated on the girl had instinctively raised my guard. It occurred to me, in passing, that he might have been waiting for someone else in the store, perhaps someone using the nearby restroom. However, as I checked out, I realized that I hadn't seen any other customers around, which made his presence all the more unsettling. Upon arriving home, still living with my parents at the time, I immediately woke up my mother and recounted the events of the evening. She hesitated, concern etched across her face, clearly uneasy about me giving a stranger a ride home. Despite her reservations, she agreed that something inside me had compelled me to take action, and perhaps I had saved that young girl from being harassed or worse. Days turned into weeks, and the incident at Walmart slowly faded from my mind. Life went on, as it tends to do, filled with its own set of trials and triumphs. However, fate had a way of intertwining our paths once again. It was a sunny afternoon, and I decided to pay a visit to the local library to pick up a book I had reserved. As I walked through the stacks, perusing the titles, I noticed a familiar face. It was her, the teenage girl from that fateful night at Walmart. Recognizing me, she approached with a smile and gratitude shining in her eyes. Her voice was filled with warmth as she thanked me once again for coming to her aid. We struck up a conversation, and she shared the aftermath of that incident. It turned out that her encounter with the man had left her traumatized. She had confided in her mother, who promptly contacted the authorities. The man was eventually apprehended and, as it unfolded, had a long history of criminal behavior. The police believed he was involved in human trafficking and had been targeting vulnerable young girls in the area. The revelation sent shivers down my spine, confirming my gut feeling that night. It was a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. I felt a mixture of relief and gratitude that I had listened to my instincts and intervened. As our conversation continued, I learned more about the girl's life and the challenges she faced. Her family had indeed relocated to escape a dangerous environment, but they were still struggling to find stability. I couldn't help but be moved by her resilience and determination in the face of adversity. Inspired by her story, I decided to offer my support beyond that fateful night at Walmart. I connected her with local organizations and resources that could provide assistance to her family. Together, we worked to ensure they received the help they needed to rebuild their lives and create a safer future. Over time, our bond grew stronger, evolving into a genuine friendship built on trust and shared experiences. We became each other's support system, navigating life's challenges together. Looking back on that horror-filled night, I often contemplate the power of intuition and the impact a single decision can have on someone's life. I couldn't ignore the fact that the universe had conspired to bring us together that night, setting in motion a series of events that would change both our lives. Though the scars from that traumatic encounter remain, we have found solace in knowing that by acting on instinct and extending a helping hand, we became beacons of light for each other in the darkness. And as we continue on our respective journeys, we cherish the friendship that emerged from the depths of that shared horror, forever grateful for the profound connection that binds us. Story 2. When my son was just a baby, my husband and I relied on my mother-in-law to watch him while we worked. Since my shift started at 6 a.m., I would wake up early and pack up the baby to drive him to Emil's house. The distance was only about 1.5 miles, and I would take the main road to get there. One particular morning, it was mid-October and the sun had yet to rise fully. It was around 5:15 a.m. when I set off to drop off the baby with my mother-in-law. As I drove along the main road, I noticed something peculiar on the opposite side. A black car from an older model, seemingly abandoned with no driver or passenger inside. It struck me as odd because the car wasn't entirely parked at the side, yet it wasn't obstructing traffic either. It just appeared stranded. After leaving the baby with Emil, I headed back to work, following the same route and passing the same spot where the black car sat. Something caught my attention, causing me to slow down. Standing near the front bumper of the car was a man. He wore a white button-down shirt and black pants, holding his hands up over his head. In one hand, he jingled a key ring, and in the other, he seemed to be holding a wallet. Being a young and altruistic person, my heart went out to this man. It was clear he had experienced car trouble and was stranded without any help. To put things into perspective, this was a time when not everyone owned a cell phone. I instantly felt the urge to assist him, believing he was just a businessman running late for work. As I got closer, the man's face lit up, which made me feel even better about my decision to be a good Samaritan. He approached my car, and with a hint of desperation in his voice, he asked if I could take him about 1 mile up the road. I readily agreed, assuming his car had broken down. I asked him about his destination, making small talk while thinking about how I was helping him out on such a terrible morning. He got into my car as I motioned for him to buckle his seatbelt. Once he did, I put the car in drive and asked where I should drop him off, attempting to engage in conversation with my passenger. However, in that moment, right after pulling away from the car, his car or not, he leaned towards me and said, "So, do you want to know how many felonies I have?" My heart sank for a brief second, and I laughed nervously, hoping he was joking and we could both laugh it off. But there was silence. Glancing at him while still trying to focus on driving, I saw that he was staring at me with a deadpan expression and a smirk on his face. Panic surged through me as I realized I had willingly let a stranger into my car. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and before I could form another thought, he continued, "Why did you think that was my car on the side of the road? I'm not even allowed to have a license, let alone a car, you dizzy little girl." He burst into the most horrifying laughter I had ever heard. To this day, the sound haunts me. Reacting on instinct, I slammed the brakes as soon as he called me a dizzy little girl. There was barely any traffic around, but I secretly hoped for a rear-end collision, anything to signal the police. From the depths of my soul, I screamed at him, "Get the hell out of my car, or I'll stab you." I didn't even have a knife, but the words tumbled out, my mind racing with fear and adrenaline. I watched as he quickly unbuckled his seatbelt and dashed out of my car, shaken to the core. I peeled off as fast as I could, desperate to put as much distance between us as possible. I arrived at work, a mess of tears and trembling, and shared the morning's terrifying events with my coworkers. They comforted me, understanding the horror I had experienced. After my shift ended, I mustered the courage to retrace the same road so I could pick up my baby from my mother-in-law's house. As I approached the area where the black car had been earlier, my heart pounded in my chest. To my surprise, the car was still there in the exact same spot. It sent a chill down my spine. I pulled into a nearby gas station and asked the cashier if she knew who the car belonged to. She had no clue, mentioning that it had been there the day before, but the white rag tied to it was now missing. In our town, a white rag tied to a side view mirror or car door handle was a signal of mechanical issues, a plea for understanding from law enforcement. I wondered if this was a national trick or just a local tradition. Unable to share the true story with the cashier due to my embarrassment and lingering fear, I proceeded to pick up my baby from my mother-in-law's house and headed home, avoiding that main road for a long time. The incident left me deeply shaken and wary of strangers. I became hypervigilant, constantly scanning my surroundings and questioning the intentions of those around me. Trust became a scarce commodity as I couldn't shake the image of that man's haunting laughter and the realization of how easily I had put myself in danger. Months passed, and life gradually returned to normalcy, but the encounter left an indelible mark on my psyche. I became proactive about personal safety, enrolling in self-defense classes and educating myself on how to stay safe in various situations. The incident served as a stark reminder of the dangers lurking in the world and the importance of trusting one's instincts. Over time, I learned to heal from the trauma, finding solace in the love and support of my family. My son grew older, and I made a conscious effort to instill in him the importance of personal safety and being cautious in unfamiliar situations. The experience, while harrowing, became a valuable lesson that I vowed never to forget. To this day, whenever I drive past that spot where the black car was stranded, I can't help but feel a shiver crawl up my spine. It serves as a reminder of the darkness that exists alongside the mundane routines of our daily lives, but it also serves as a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit, urging us to be vigilant, trust our instincts, and prioritize our safety above all else. Story 3. I was living in a secluded area of upstate New York with my ex-boyfriend and his family. Our relationship was tumultuous, marked by frequent arguments. One morning, before he left for work, we had an explosive fight. In a fit of anger, he hurled hurtful words at me, suggesting that I should go back to the Bronx if I didn't like it. Those words stung, but they also ignited a rebellious fire within me. Without a second thought, I hastily put on my winter jacket and Uggs, grabbed my cigarettes, and stormed out of the house. In my impulsive state, I didn't even consider grabbing my cell phone. Walking seemed like my only option, as I didn't have a car. As I reached the entrance of the trailer park, I realized that I had no sense of direction. Having only lived there for a few months, I wasn't familiar with the area. Disoriented, I took a left turn, determined to walk towards civilization. I found myself trudging alongside a busy road, the icy slush from passing 18-wheelers drenching me and freezing my feet. In the midst of my snowy trek, I spotted my ex-boyfriend driving by in his car. To my surprise, instead of showing concern or remorse, he accelerated, still harboring anger from our earlier argument. I expected him to turn around at some point, but he never did. It was a sobering moment that left me feeling abandoned and vulnerable. Determined to find solace, I decided to head towards my best friend's mother's house, located in the same town. However, as the snow intensified, my energy waned. Along the way, I passed a VFW where an ordinary-looking pickup truck was parked in the driveway. It was only after I had walked past it that I noticed the driver sitting inside. He called out to me, offering help in a kind voice. My stomach churned with apprehension. Realizing that I might have to accept the assistance of a stranger, I approached the truck cautiously, assessing the man's appearance. He seemed like an average, clean-cut older man with gray hair and greenish-blue eyes. Feeling the weight of my vulnerability, I blurted out a question that showcased my inner turmoil. "Are you a good guy or a bad guy?" It was a foolish inquiry, but in that moment, I couldn't suppress my unease. He replied with a hint of amusement, stating that he wouldn't reveal his true intentions even if he were a bad guy. His response sent shivers down my spine. Despite the alarm bells ringing in my head, I chose to get into his truck, as I was desperate to find a way to contact my best friend and clarify the location of her mother's house. Borrowing his cell phone, I made several unsuccessful attempts to reach my friend, her unfamiliarity with the number preventing her from answering. As the minutes ticked by, the stranger initiated a conversation, asking why I found myself alone in the middle of nowhere, dressed in pajamas and braving the snow. I confessed that I had gotten into a heated argument with my boyfriend and stormed out impulsively. His curiosity piqued, he broached a disconcerting proposition. "Hey, would you be interested in making a little money?" Nervously chuckling, I declined, hoping to deflect any further sinister intentions. However, his demeanor changed, and he insinuated that my origin from the Bronx might make me inclined towards such an offer. Fear gripped me as I realized the grave situation I had willingly placed myself in. With each passing moment, panic consumed me, yet I had to conceal my fear. I scanned the surroundings, desperately searching for a safe place to escape if necessary, but the sparse houses offered no refuge. I resigned myself to the fact that this might be the end, a chilling realization that filled me with terror. However, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, the stranger inquired about the person I intended to visit. Without hesitation, I blurted out my best friend's mother's name and her husband's full name. To my surprise, his demeanor shifted once again. He perked up, revealing that he knew the husband and had shared a history of snowmobiling with him 2 decades earlier. A wave of relief washed over me as he confidently claimed to know the exact location of their residence. As we pulled up to a large yellow house, it felt like a sanctuary, a safe haven from the horrors of the road. Grateful yet wary, I thanked the stranger, introducing myself with a fabricated name, before hastily escaping the truck and rushing towards the porch. The moment I reached the front door, I crashed through it and locked it behind me, my tears flowing uncontrollably. Within the safety of my best friend's mother's house, I recounted the harrowing events that unfolded that morning. She listened attentively, a mix of horror and curiosity painted across her face. She implored me to promise that I would never put myself in such a reckless situation again and assured me that I could always rely on her for help. Determined to ensure my safety, she vowed to discuss the encounter with her husband upon his return, seeking any information he might have about the mysterious man named Steve. Grateful for her support, I left her house later that day and returned to my boyfriend's place. Seeking solace, I resorted to getting stoned, hoping to numb the lingering fear and anxiety. The following day, my friend's mother called me with an urgent tone in her voice. She revealed that Steve, the man who had offered me a ride, was a dangerous individual with a troubling past. Her husband had cut off all contact with him years ago. The last they had heard, Steve had been arrested for sexual assault, painting a grim picture of the danger I had unknowingly put myself in. She emphasized how easily he could have harmed me and left me stranded on a desolate stretch of road with no one aware of my whereabouts. The snow-covered landscape could have concealed my disappearance for an indefinite period, leaving me isolated and vulnerable. The realization of the perilous situation I had narrowly escaped sent shivers down my spine. From that day forward, I carried the weight of that experience as a cautionary tale, a constant reminder to think before acting impulsively. It served as a stark reminder of the potential dangers that lurk in the world, urging me to prioritize my safety above all else. The snow, which once seemed serene and peaceful, now held a chilling significance, a reminder of the fragile line between life and potential tragedy.